What I want to go with that question is like, do you think that in one country, for example, you can be high value? Like, for example, okay, let's say in Israel, because I represent the Israel nationality, I can be perceived as high value, but then I come to the US and do the same results, but I'm not high value there. Do you think it's possible?
Well, it's contextual, isn't it?
But I'm
Depending
doing the
where
same
you
things.
are
For
in the world.
example, okay, so for example, I'm highly successful. I'm like in the 10% of men in Israel, and then I go to the US, and there I'm not really on the 10% because there are people who are more valuable than me in money, for example, and I think in other components. So do you think that high value can be in other places also? Like, do you think it can be transcended to uh, to other countries as well, or it
Well,
can be
that's like the
stopped?
good point because value is relative to the location that you are. And within the black pill, like there's this big sort of solution slash belief in this thing called geomaxing, which
Mm.
says that which acknowledges that your value is relative to your location. So if you're, a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 SMV in one particular country, in a country with higher standards of beauty and social status and money, then you might only be like a 3 or a 4 in terms of SMV. And just looking at basic, metrics such as height and like how you compare with the rest of the population. Like if you're 5'10" in the UK, then you're like fifth right at the 50% mark. Like you're right slap bang in the middle. But if you go to a country such as Thailand or the Philippines, then 5'10" puts you like in the top 15, 20% of guys. So that by definition there, your value has increased without actually, changing your inherent value, but it's just the external factors that are increasing your value.
But the thing is, like in let's take the US as like the highest on the hierarchy, for example, because they're the richest country in the world. Okay,
Yeah.
and then I'll say like, okay, I'm high value there, and I think because I'm high value in terms of what I have, I'm also high value on the market, on the dating market. But therefore, my question is, one's country one country as like one dating market. They have their own women, they have their own men, and they have their own culture. But do you think that it's important to be like high value in the most high value country, for example, the US, but not in particular to get the best girls? Because I see in Israel, for example, a quantity of various different cultures, and they're all beautiful in my opinion, some of less, some of more, but I think that I would rather be high value in this country more than to be in the US, because the US has a different culture than mine, for example. You get what I mean?
Yeah. So what's your question?
Okay, so my question is, do you think that in particular being the highest value guy in one country, in the most high valuest country in the world, is better than being like a high value guy in another country which is less valuable in the world but has better selections of women in there?
So it's almost like a compromise. I think I get what you're trying to say because if you go to a lower value country, then you're probably going to have more abundance, more options. You're going to have an easier time. You're going to get less flakes, less time wasters and things like that. If you go to a lower value country on average. Um, However, by the definition of that country being lower value, the women are also going to be of lower quality. So, like, I understand what you're trying to say. That if you're, in a high value country and you're high value yourself, you're not going to have as many options, like by being there. However, the quality options might be a little bit better.
But it also can be a lot worse. I think that in the US, and correct me if I'm wrong, because where do you live? In England or the US?
Yeah, I live in the U. I live in the UK, which is England. Yeah.
Okay, so you don't know the situation in the US, I think, but let's go with England, for example. Okay, um, do you think that? And I see like England as a high value country, for example. Do you see that the women there are high value as well?
Um, it depends on like your definition of high value. Um, like are we like it's not really a yes or no sort of question that you can answer because it's more of a spectrum. Like you've got in any society, you're going to have high value women and low value women. Um, like so, it's not really like a yes or no answer where you could say, oh yes, there's they're all high value women here. Like it's just not the case because you're going to have a lot of low value women as well.
Okay, okay. So, okay, let's put that question to the side. And I'm very like fascinated and very interested in talking about the online dating because, for me, that's where the black pill shines. That's where I see
Yeah.
it because you see a face of a man, for example, which is 10 times less likely to be swiped right if I'm not wrong, right? Can you confirm it?
Yeah. So the way I put it is that like every point you move down the scale in attractiveness is 10 times harder. Well, 10 times fewer matches. So let's say an 8 gets like, 1,000 matches per month. A 7 will get 100 matches per month. A 6 will get 10 matches per month. A 5 will get 1. And then from there, it's just like fewer and fewer and fewer. Like that's like my rough, like boundaries of how, yeah, that's like my rough estimation of like how your results will appeal online on online dating apps.
So do you think that rewires the brains of the women to like pick men like that? Because that's how I see it, that it's no longer you're meeting men face to face because of the technological differences. You can now meet somebody from far away. For example, me and you, we are talking, and I live in the Israel and you live in the UK, and I can also not see you but talk to you, which is something a little awkward because the technological thing goes way farther than we seen it like 50 years ago or like more than that. So again, the question is, do you think it rewires the brains of the women?
What online dating rewires the brains of women? Well, it definitely, yeah, absolutely, like has an effect on themselves and their standards and their, dating preferences. Like, I think the main thing is that it drastically like increases their, standards of attractiveness. Like, so if you're, a 6 out of 10 guy who otherwise would have like had a chance in real life because you would have been able to have a better chance of, cajoling her and using your social skills to like build rapport. However, on an online dating app, which is where the world is heading nowadays, that's just not possible. Like, and it's just all about looks. Like I spoke about this in one of my first videos that um, in a social environment such as cold approach or warm approach, it's going to be something like 50 to 60% of your looks, and then the other 40 to 50% is going to be your other things such as your status and your social skills.
But again, it's your assumption. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's your assumption, not a study or something along those
Yeah,
lines,
yeah,
right?
of course it's not a study, but it's more of a case of common sense rather than scientific gesture. But I think everyone can agree that when it comes to online dating, it's like 95 to 99% all about looks. Like, of course, you have elements such as your bio and things like that, but like I've seen actual studies on this that whether you have a bio or not, it affects your results by like less than 5%. But the main difference is, well, I made that number up, but like
Okay.
I I don't have like the exact study at hand here, but like if I did look it up, like it would be a very very low number. Like but the main factors that affect your number of matches, obviously, is going to be the photos, like how good you look in your photos.